Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the What's Their Why podcast. I'm delighted to be here today with the one and only Action Jackson. Welcome, Action Jackson or Jackson.
It's good to be here, mate. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me. We've had a bit of a challenge, haven't we? With power cuts and various things like that, so we've had to postpone a couple of times. But it's great to be able to finally get you on. And as we were saying just before we started, you actually came on my radar probably around about 10 years ago when you visited one of my schools at the time with the Fix Up team.
Yeah,
which I'm sure we'll get into. But for those people who don't know you, I'm sure there must be like one or two out there. So for those people that don't know you, obviously, you're a motivational speaker, but that's a very broad kind of umbrella term, if you like. Big lover of cheesecake, I know, but also really spreading that message of happiness and inspiring people. But do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction on yourself and your own educational background as well?
Excellent. Yeah, well, it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm the UK ambassador for happiness. And the reason behind that is when you look around, we need a bit of happiness. I traveled to the UAE for some training and I found out they actually have a minister for happiness out there.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense because you got to have someone looking after the happiness. And I came back to the UK and I was like, do we have one of those? And nothing came up. So I went on my knees and I crowned myself the UK ambassador for happiness. And for the last 25 years, I've been sort of pushing a message of the importance of happiness, because when happiness is up, productivity will follow, and that's my philosophy. For me, I'm a father of two and a husband to one. That's been a wonderful challenge that keeps me on my toes. And my whole thing has always been through education. It's interesting. Education is a place where you're supposed to discover yourself.
Yeah.
But what you find is most people lose themselves within education, only to come out on the other end to then try and find themselves again. And for me, going through education, I knew there were some things tugging at me. I wanted to become an actor. I wanted to perform on stage. But the voices in my head told me I wasn't good enough. My parents was like, how's that going to pay the bills? And so everybody just don't get a secure job with Abbey National at the time. That was my parents were saying. Yeah. But I was following my heart. I said, you know what? I'm not having it. I'm going to find what makes me happy. And I decided to start a company inspiring people to just be happy and to have fun and to get your work done, but most importantly, education and entertainment combined.
Okay. And that was literally straight off the back of leaving school, was it?
So yeah, if I'm going from sort of doing GCSEs, which was all right, to doing college, BTEC National Diploma. And it's quite interesting. I did an engineering diploma, but all my friends were from the performing arts department.
Right.
And all of that. I'm just like, look, the writing's on the wall, mate. And then I went on to university and I remembered clearly the day my day of graduation was when I got my letter of employment from a company I wanted to work for. I worked for them for like 8 months and I got fired after 8 months, simply because I've always had the idea to start a business. And it's like, there's going to be a conflict of interest. You need to go off and do your own thing. I was like, you're fired. I'm like, I'm hired. I'm going to hire myself. And that was it. Off the back of uni, I just went straight into starting my own business. Didn't waste any time.
Fantastic. So, as I said at the outset, we first met in a school hall around about 10 years ago in Essex, where you came along with Mr. Beasy, as part of the Fix Up team, delivered some motivational workshops, if you like, for our year 11s in the run up to their exams. And I think you came back and did a similar thing for year 10s because it went down so well with the students. And I remember talking to the students afterwards, and they were really blown away by some of the tools and the techniques that you shared with them. But what was really interesting was that a lot of them were very much kind of saying, well, it's just nice to hear it from somebody else.
Wow.
We're so used to hearing it from you guys as teachers.
Yeah.
It's just nice to hear it from someone who's from the real world.
Real humans.
Really, and that really stuck with me, all this time later, that actually those real world voices are so important in education. and it's very easy for us to end up looking inwards, particularly with budget constraints as they are, and the fact that schools are struggling to pay staff, B, to recruit staff, but also to be able to afford to allow staff to go off site to do other things and attend training and courses and all those kind of things. So when students get the opportunity to see people coming in from the outside, and that's obviously a little bit easier now with technology, it doesn't necessarily have to be an in-person visit. I think it's all the more important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's the same message from a different voice and a different energy. We come in like the cool auntie and uncle to just reinforce it. And with the ever-changing minds of our next generation, the way we deliver to them has to shift and be in alignment with the way they're receiving information. Our young people will go home and consume entertainment at the highest degree, come back to school the next day, and their brain's just like, what is this I'm getting? I need the same fix and the hit I got last night from TikTok or whatever it is. And so education has some work to do in making sure that our young people are in alignment with what they need to be successful and happy.
I couldn't agree more. I was very fortunate to be at a award ceremony last week for the Edge of Futurists Awards, and I was given a lightning talk there. And one of the things I talked about there was dopamining and those intrinsic versus the extrinsic awards with students, and how so often in schools we spend so much time revising and reviewing our rewards policy to be extrinsic rewards without thinking about what's the intrinsic motivation for our students. What is it that they want? Because like you say, those fixes that they get, those dopamine fixes that they get from consuming the information in the way that speaks to them.
Yeah.
When they then don't get that in school, they go searching for that dopamine buzz in other ways. And I think that, possibly, it may not be the only cause, but I think that is, to a certain extent, kind of manifesting itself in some of the challenging behaviors that we're seeing post-pandemic in schools, where students are searching out that buzz.
Of course. I mean, it's a biological thing, biological, physiological, where if I'm bored and I'm tired, serotonin kicks in, that stress levels kicks in. But the second I'm listening to a joke, or someone cracks a joke, or someone farts in class and we all laugh, there's that dopamine hit. And so the body and the brain needs that. And you're right, throughout the whole season when they're in the pandemic, they're getting a dopamine hit. And now the brain and the body, because what happens is the more you get that hit, the more your brain begins to condition itself around that hit.
Yeah.
And so our kids have become addicts of entertainment. That's why you find they'll be up all night watching silliness on TikTok, because it's hitting me. Where even for me as a grown adult, currently I'm actually on a detox program where I'm staying off social media for the next 31 days.
Right. Okay.
So a dopamine detox, so I can just gather myself again and then go back in, because it can be quite dangerous.
It's interesting you say that. I've just come back. I've just had a week away, and for the first time in sort of 24 years, some time away during school time, because I've never been able to previously. And I took my wife away. We went away for 4 or 5 days, spent a lot of time fishing, sat by the side of the lake, really chilled out, away from everything, no technology. But I've come back home, and within a couple of days, I've had a kind of breakout of kind of like the kind of the after effects of a bout of shingles I had a few years ago, which was not pleasant. But basically now I get a little bit like, when cold sores return and all that kind of stuff, I get like a little breakout of like lumps and rash on my head and all that kind of thing, and the body starts to tingle, and it's all very strange and disconcerting. But it's one of those things that it's literally like, as soon as you detox and you get away from those things and you let your guard down, like sometimes everything then kind of piles in on top of you. And I've been very open in recent years about the fact that, I've had my struggles with anxiety and things like that. And I've learned through things like CBT, various different techniques for coping with it. But I think it's really important that we do listen to ourselves and we listen to our bodies. And I take this now. I notice the itching before anything appears.
Yeah.
And that kind of tells me, whoa, hold on a minute, slow down. take a deep breath, kind of, because you're about to hit a wall. And I never recognized that before. And I think I probably just kept plowing into that wall over and over again. And inevitably then, every time we got to a school holiday, I was like sick as a dog all the way through it. And then fine when we went back to work, So, and that's exactly the same for kids as well, and I think that's one of the things that we forget, 100% I'm behind, the fact that pupils need to be in school. But also we need them to be present in school.
It's true what you're saying, because there's a difference between time and attention. You can get my time, but if you don't have my attention, you haven't got me. And so we've got our young people's physical time, but do we have their emotional attention? And that's the most important thing, that if a young person if they're not engaged, then we've lost them. And I think there's something to be said about really having those conversations. This is why I love this, what's their why? Not what's the school's why or the academy's why. What's their why? Because once you connect their why with your why, everybody's winning. But you need to know what their why is. And that's so important about discovering what makes them tick. That's why we can walk into a session, do a motivational workshop with a young person, and they're lit. It's like, whoa, I want more, because we've tapped into what makes them tick and connected with their education.
And so it sounds like brilliant and like a bit of a magic wand, doesn't it? We just walk in and we connect. But how do you go about connecting with a brand new audience that first time?
Okay, so this thing is, I always say to my team, if you're not living this stuff, get out of my company. You got to live it. And when you live this stuff, you don't even have to try and convince anybody. Your very presence becomes magnetic. And so I'm very much aware. We were just talking about, what are the yellow signals, not the red signals, the yellow signals in your life. When you're driving down and your petrol gauge is like yellow, you're like, yeah, I think I can make it to Edinburgh from London with this yellow. It's like, let's keep pushing. And for me, I've gotten very good at noticing the yellow signals and honoring what I want. Like the other day, I was like, okay, what do I feel like eating? I want cereal right now. Or what color do I want to wear? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. It starts from the little things. And what that does, it gives you power. The more you honor yourself, the more powerful you become. And the more you say no to others and yes to you more, the more powerful you become. And so when we do that, I go roller skating every week without fail.
Cool.
Because I found that that's one thing, it brings out the child in you and I feel alive, So when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Well, for me, it was actually fishing. It's something I've been interested in for best part of 45 years, but I was never convinced I could go and sit by a lake and do nothing all day. I went to pick up my daughter, who was with her boyfriend, and he just handed me a rod while he was in the middle of doing something. And, and the bloody thing went off, didn't it? And that was it. I was, forgive the pun, but I was hooked, quite literally. And I absolutely love it. And I didn't appreciate how much is involved and actually how active and, and the excitement and the buzz that you get that made me feel like a kid again with a brand new toy.
Of course,
it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. And that's the key thing, kid again. I did something very unique on my last birthday. I thought, I'm going to start looking after me now. I'm teaching well-being. I'm doing well-being keynotes. I'm just like, when are you going to start living this stuff fully? And so during my birthday, I don't know about some people, if you're listening right now, some people don't even honor their birthdays. It's like, it's just another day. But my birthday, I decided to make a list of all the things I wanted for my birthday and send it to family and friends, and I was challenged to do that. But when I started making a list, I was stuck on two things. I couldn't think anymore. I thought, this is a bit weird that I couldn't think beyond 2 items and it's your birthday. And so I forced myself to sit down. I said, right, you got to build up the list. I built the list of about 31 items, Crocs, bikes, radio control car, hand, stuff that brought joy to me. And one of the items that was given to me was roller skates. And by just making the list, Darren, something shifted in me. There was something in me that said, finally, he's honoring us. And that was the beginning of this journey of feeling that internal power. And so, in answer to your question, when we walk into the room, we walk in with the energy and presence that we've built outside of the room. And so when we're speaking, it's easy for that young person to resonate with what we're talking, because we live the stuff. We're not just teaching the stuff.
Yeah. And that's so important, you know, from an authenticity perspective, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You can't just, I mean, for me, like every morning, I wake up, I do my stretch, do my yoga, do my journal every morning. Didn't do it yesterday, this morning, because I was on a podcast at 3 a.m. this morning from the other side of the country. I mean, the US, so there's a time difference. So I slept a bit later, but that's okay, because I've been consistent for the last God knows how long. There's a couple of other things I do for my well-being as well. This year so far, I've decided to not. I haven't seen one news headline this year.
Right.
That
must be quite liberating.
Darren, I feel so alive. The fact that it's not coming at me, you know. The second thing I decided to upgrade to YouTube Premium to get rid of all the adverts.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was going to really help me as well, because if you can understand human beings, we thrive from focus and being present.
Yep.
And if I'm listening to you right now and an advert comes in, I'm distracted. I come back again. My focus is fragmented. My energy is fragmented. And so all these little things are the things that I've been doing to really help me. And you show up. You be an example for the next generation. You know, you've got to live this stuff. Let me tell you, see, the next generation need adults who are living their stuff. No, don't shout at me. Don't talk at me. It's not what you say, it's what I see.
Yeah.
That's what makes the big difference.
Yeah. Walking the walk rather than just talking the talk.
Come on. They know if you care. They know if you're on your own, you know, pathway. And so this is why I advise educators, leaders, teachers, parents, most importantly, you know, follow what it is you want them to do.
Do you do a lot of work with parents?
Huh?
Do you do a lot of work with parents?
Yeah, I've had not as much as I would like to do, you know, but it's only now I've shifted gears. So I've students, yes, teachers, yes. I'm now realizing that actually parental work is so important, because that's where most of the damage is done. Because your mom would say one thing, your dad would say something, and that would affect your confidence. You know, I remember doing a session recently, and the girl wanted to become an actress. Poor girl, she's going back home and her mom wants her to be a nurse. And somehow, I'm sure she'll be manipulated into picking a course doing nursing, and she'll get paid, but her soul will be like, I'm trapped. And so, I would definitely love to. Any parents out there, please get on the path of personal development. It really will help.
Absolutely. You know, and it's one of them things as well. It's not even necessarily, you know, a deliberate thing, is it? You know, in a lot of cases, I think we underestimate how kind of disempowered parents feel when we come to talk about education, and how they can sometimes feel that actually, you know, sitting down and helping their child with their homework or whatever, you know, they can feel that that's not achievable, because, you know, they don't know how we do it anymore, or they don't understand that. And actually, you know, I was very fortunate to be at an LGFL conference a few months ago where John Tate was speaking, and he was talking about the fact that, you know, that it's not the pedagogical knowledge that parents need. They just need to feel empowered to know that if they can, you know, that they don't need to know the content as long as they know how to help. And that's, you know, a really important part of it, because I should imagine the content part, you know, certainly for me with my daughter, unfortunately, she's 19 now. She's in Greece at the moment. Good luck to her. You know, any conflict we had over homework was generally around content rather than anything else.
Yeah.
In that she believed one thing because that's what she'd taken away from the lesson. I believe something else because, you know, I'm an educator and I've picked up what I know. The problem we've all got is that we're all putting our own slant on it.
Yeah.
And you know, and we're all putting our own take on it, and we're all interpreting things in our own way. And you know, maybe that's somewhere where actually that personal bias might start to kind of disappear a little bit with the input of things like AI in education and things like that might enable people. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what you think, but it might enable parents to find that whole aspect a lot more accessible.
Well, if you think about it, everyone is to just play their role. Teachers do pedagogy, and parents do love. That's what you can do. Do love, pay attention, because we don't need that. There is something about environment dictates personality, environment dictates performance. And if you create a loving environment around that child, you may not know content, but create the right context of love and care, around that. And I always say, listen, 3 C's. Number 1, connect, then correct, then celebrate. Learn to connect with your child. That's so important. If you think about it, my daughter, she's 3, and daddy carry me. Daddy, I want a hug. And my mom, she's like, oh, you're carrying her too much. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to carry her for as long as I can because I know there is an expiration date on this connection.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I'm sure your 19-year-old is not jumping on your lap and sitting on your shoulders.
No. Thankfully, she's just passed her driving test because it was basically, Dad, can I have a lift? That was my hug. That's the way I viewed it. Yeah. When she asked me for a lift, that was my hug. That was like, I need you.
So my thing with parents is do your job as parents, which is just love, care, and provide a warm environment for that person to thrive. Let the teachers do their bits, we're all trained to do what we need to do. And I think, there is something to be said. There's a quote that says, children who are loved at home come to school to learn. And children who are not come to school to be loved.
Yeah.
That love is the first language. Am I loved? Am I accepted? Am I good enough?
No, 100%. And, just reflecting on that, I can 100% kind of put names to faces for pupils in both camps, and then the subsequent kind of behaviors. I won't say behavior, but behaviors that we see in school as a result of that, because they're either, they're fully nurtured and they're fully loved and they don't need that, or they don't feel that and they've got a deficit and they're really searching out for it. And, young people do that in the right way sometimes and the wrong way sometimes, because that's part of growing up, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a language that most people need to learn, and it is love. And if you don't get it, love is to a human being what oxygen is to the brain. And the more you deprive a human being of love, they slowly start to deteriorate, and they turn into a different kind of mutant because I'm not getting the love. Funny story. My wife and I, we had our second child. She's about 3 months old. And for the first 2 months, I would pick her up and she's crying and cranky and crying and cranky. I'm thinking, I'm your dad. What's that about? Give her back to her mom. She's all right. I'm thinking, this is a bit weird. And my wife is like, she's not comfortable around you. I'm like, what is it? And I started panicking. I'm thinking, what's this about? All she needed was physical time, smell, touch, for her brain to say, this face is a regular face, safe face. And that came with time. And now when she sees me, she's smiling and she's loving it. All because the time was there, the attention was there, and the connection was there. And I think our children, let me tell you, all of us, even as adults, there's still a child in us waiting to be hugged.
100%. Yeah.
Honestly. And if we can find a way to give ourselves that hug, trust me, these mental health issues and challenges we're seeing, it will go down because it's all about love. I think there was a great band that said it. All you need is love. Da, 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 da. All you need is love. Love is all you need.
That's the one. It wasn't Oasis, was it?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was. Was it Take That? I'm not too sure.
on the subject of mental health and all that kind of thing, obviously, I know from my own experience, you came in with the Fix Up team. You did the sessions with our Year 11s in the lead up to their exams. But I know you guys also do a lot of work with Year 6s now as well in the lead up to SATs, and it's SATs week at the moment. So best of luck to everybody trying to get through that week. But have you noticed a shift in terms of the mental pressures that students are under at different age groups? over the last few years.
So we had a year 6 session the other day, and I was like, yeah, we're here to teach about happiness. No word of a lie, 9-year-old right in front of me looks up and says, happiness is not real.
Whoa.
In a primary school.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's so many bad things happening. Happiness is not real. I was lost for words. Darren, I don't normally lose words, but I was lost for words. I thought, if they've lost hope in happiness now at this age, what else is there? And so they've grown up so quickly in terms of observing so much of the world that now their mental capacity is being affected. And so what we now find is they're under that pressure. That inhibition is kicked in year 4.
Yeah.
Let alone year 6. So before you've left secondary school, primary school, you're feeling it. And it's sad because you look at that, you think, nah, you're a child. You're supposed to be buzzing with sparks. They've lost the spark. By the time they get to secondary, forget it. End of year 7, oh yeah, you're done. You're done. And so, yes, the mental pressures are there. The combination between the examining and the testing, it's all good, but what we're doing on the other side to balance it all out.
Yeah.
You know, these are children. These are children.
Yeah. And, you know, taking the SATs as an example, you could probably jump onto any primary school website this week, and obviously everything's going to be about SATs. But if you look at like the upcoming dates, then from next week onwards, it's going to be trips and residentials and performances and visits and all sorts of things, which all kind of gets pushed to the end.
Yes.
Once the SATs are out of the way, which, you know, on one hand, I kind of go, yeah, well, that, you know, they're building up to that, and they've worked hard, they've done their SAT, so they deserve this now. But I just think, what a shame that we're in a situation where we have to kind of bottle everything in and almost like funnel it into the SATs or funnel it into the GCSEs, and then we allow the other stuff afterwards, because that's you know, I hate the term, but it's character building.
Yeah. It is. I mean, they're going to come out to the real world, and they're going to need to. Do you know what's so sad? Because I know adults who just go in and keep going, and they don't stop until the body says, right, I'm going to force you to stop. And all we're doing is we are training and priming them to be like that, whereby just go, or a little 2 weeks of fun, you know. So I've got a new philosophy now where I'm working towards 80% play and 20% work. That's the philosophy that I'm working towards. That 20% of work actually yields 80% of results in my business, in my personal life, and in the impact and the income we want to make. Because I know that when I'm in play mode, I'm more creative, I'm more alert, I'm more connected.
Yeah.
Versus if you're just burnt out, no ideas are flowing when you're burnt out mind.
And I think that's a really important distinction as well, that, you know, play and play mode can be two different things. We're not talking about I'm going to go and watch TV and do nothing, but actually getting together in a room with colleagues, getting out, you know, a massive flip chart, some pens, and just, you know, throwing ideas around can actually be really inspirational and very cathartic, can't it?
Thank you. And it's that I approach everything like play. And I think it was a great philosopher, Alan Watts, that says, you know what, life is play, enjoy it. Approach life with play, because if you approach life with anything other than play, it's going to feel like dread, you know. And it's like music. You're enjoying the music. You're not waiting to the end of the music to see what happens. You're enjoying the music. And I think that, yes, we got work to do. We got things to achieve. But can we, like, I like what you said, I'm going to nick it. Play, you know, what does play mode? And then there's play. But then play mode is there, because some people say you can't be playing all the time, but you can have play mode around work.
Yeah.
You know, so it's it's so important, play. Very, because our hearts and our minds is crying out. You know what I mean? It's and we have to listen. We have to listen.
Yes, I'm just sitting here reflecting, and actually that whole kind of playfulness is such a rich and diverse and aspect of human life, and something to really celebrate. I was just reflecting back. I had a year 8 class many years ago. I was a language teacher by trade, And I had a year 8 class, probably like way back in the early 2000s. And I went in to teach them one day, language lesson, obviously, lots of speaking, and they refused to speak. 100%, not one of them would speak. And for the entire hour, I couldn't get a single person to give me a verbal answer. And I was pulling my hair out and I couldn't work out what it was all about. And then I went next door to my colleague who'd had exactly the same experience from his class. And it turned out that the two classes had basically conspired against us and said, look, because we'd played a bit of a prank on them, a bit of a, the week before kind of thing, they decided they were going to get their own back. And they basically went, we're not going to speak. So like the two of us were in our own little bubbles in our classroom going, what on earth's going on? And then when we came out at the end of it, we're both going, well, we both had the same experience. What on earth's going on? And then the kids came out of the class just with these massive smiles on their faces. Just going, your back, sir. And I was kind of like, wow, like full of admiration for that level of organization, dedication, for keeping it going for the full hour.
Of course.
It's not easy, particularly when you're, Pavlov dog, you're trained to respond to questions and all that kind of stuff. But that playfulness, I just thought was actually, like, as much as it was frustrating for me at the time, that's one of those moments that stayed with me for forever since, because I was just like, good for you guys. Like, you've had a bit of fun there at my expense in a gentle way. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. And you're right. That playfulness, it required a level of intellectual organization and resilience and determination. And it's so powerful. It's funny, as you were talking, I'm reminded of I went to a school and this kid was in isolation. And they said he was in isolation because he was selling sweets at school because, check this out, he was raising money to buy his mom Mother's Day present. And so he's being punished. Yeah. I'm thinking, do you know what you've just done there? You've just killed a future entrepreneur who's learning to solve a problem with innovation and enterprise.
Yeah. And not doing any harm.
Yes, you broke in school rules, don't sell sweets, whatever, but there's a way to encourage that. And so I think, I've got this whole phrase of like, life is fun, fun is life. Enjoy it. Whatever you do, just make sure. And there are so many things you can do that's fun that doesn't require money. Like you just rightly said, these kids just prank you guys because life is to be enjoyed. And I think the more we do that, oh wow. I mean, who doesn't like to have a bit of fun?
Yeah, 100%. That's like if you're not getting up in the morning and looking forward to having a bit of fun somewhere, where is your motivation?
There you go.
It's just that treadmill, isn't it?
Yeah. I made a decision. I said, I don't work Mondays.
Most of us this month, to be fair.
How's that?
Most of us don't work Mondays this month because there
I
aren't.
know, just right, exactly. All the Mondays, like, oh, wait. and the thinking behind that was the whole world will go running through the weekend. Oh, yeah. And then Monday, go back into it. And I made a decision. I said, you know what? I want my Mondays to be just chilled out, relaxed, creative day. Where what's the agenda for the day? I don't know. I'm just going to flow into the day. I'm still productive doing so. Whatever I feel like doing, I lean into that day. And then Tuesday, you can give me all these meetings and that. But the reason why I made that decision was I just realized that everybody's just on this zombie mode and it can be dangerous. And so I'm challenging everybody watching, you might be in full-time work, really stressed out. What do you do for fun? And it doesn't have to be like, there's 5-minute fun. There's 30 minutes fun. There's 1 day fun. There's 2 weeks fun. There's 3 weeks fun. Just make sure there's fun in your life at whatever capacity, dancing to your favorite song. That's fun. Yeah. And the amount of energy it gives you throughout the whole day.
Absolutely. And, it's coming back to the point you made earlier about, you listen to a song, a piece of music, and you appreciate it. But if you don't enjoy that song, you just switch it off. But so many of us don't switch off the other things we don't enjoy because we don't think we can. And I think that's one of the things earlier on in my career, I kind of saw that career ladder of, Like you're going to work your way through sort of middle leadership, senior leadership, up to kind of head of school and head teacher. When I got to the top of that ladder, I didn't like the view at all.
Yeah.
And I was very kind of like, well, what do I do now? Because that's what I've always known. Right? And it was only when I started coming back down the ladder, I took a conscious decision, like yourself, to say, right, well, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to come back down the ladder. That's when I started to see that there were other ladders.
Of course. Wow.
And actually, some of those ladders weren't built.
Yeah.
They were still in kit form.
Of course.
For want of a better word, like strange analogy, I suppose. But actually what I then did was I started to build my own ladder, and I've gradually worked my way to kind of where I am now, and so much happier for it, and much more fulfilled, and much more, I think probably more impactful as well. Because like I was talking to some colleagues the other day, the amount of stuff that goes on a day-to-day basis that you miss when you're in classroom all the time. Because, you know, you're there 5 lessons a day. You might be on break duty, lunch duty. You might have an after-school club. You might have meetings. So you come in the dark, you go home in the dark, and you miss everything else that's gone on during the day. And sometimes you don't even have a conversation with another adult. And that's very easy to do. And that's not just teachers, but that might be, you know, school business managers who are making big, high-powered decisions. It might be, you know, individuals working like librarians and people like that. Actually, you know, who do they go and bounce off of? Because they're the one in their school, and no one else really gets their context. And head teachers as well, of course. You know, very, very difficult, because in the age of, you know, league tables and accountability and everything else, people aren't always as willing to share with the school down the road as perhaps they would be and here's a challenge. What if we were all in it together for the kids? It'd be amazing.
Hello. Because that's what ultimately it's supposed to be. 50 years from now, we want to look back and say, we helped a generation find happiness and success. And in the real world, yes, there's competition, but how about we rise by lifting one another? You know, because when it's all said and done, top of the league table, but you've lost what's most important, which is the trust of the young next generation. And a lot of teachers and individuals are burnt out by the end of this chase. It's ridiculous chase. And I think it's so important that that collaboration, and it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun to do that. And well done for, you know, coming down the ladder and picking up your own flat pack and start assembling the ladder.
Might have been some swearing along the way, but
it's like, what's this screw for? It's like, oh, forget it.
Yeah, we'll use it for something another time. You know, I'm sure we've all got boxes of screws that we just and Allen keys. I've never had so many Allen keys in my life.
Wow, can you imagine that everyone's got that one drawer in their life that's got the Allen keys, the batteries, and everything. So this is quite interesting as we're talking. There's a lot of people right now, because as an entrepreneur, I help a lot of people sort of discover their talents and build their businesses and whatever not. I can't help but think that there's a lot of people in education who want to get out and do something else, but they're too scared to make that jump and that leap. Like, obviously, you know, 9 to 5, money and what, but their soul is crying out. So you taking that leap must have been a very courageous one to be able to just step out.
Yeah, it wasn't easy at all. Like I said, it was, you know, I was on that path, which was all I'd ever known, because I went into teaching very early on. So I didn't come from another career anywhere. So as far as I was concerned, career progression looks like the way it mapped out across the school. And you know, head teacher was kind of like the pinnacle where you're aiming for. And a lot of the other roles around that didn't really exist at the time. So when I realized that actually that's not where I wanted to be, and it wasn't the right situation for me, it was really difficult. And, you know, there were some really difficult moments and some very dark conversations in my own mind and things around, like, well, what can I do? Because I think quite often, as you say, as educators, I don't think we recognize enough just how transferable our skills are.
Oh yeah. Because
you pigeonhole yourself as being a teacher. unless it's the end of the 6 weeks holidays, and then you kind of go, oh my God, how do I do all this again? I've forgotten what I'm supposed to do. And all of that comes in. But actually we see ourselves as teachers and don't realize actually the breakdown of all the little things we do. Coming back to your earlier point around, that you perform in arts because you're constantly putting on a show and you're painting on a smile, but you've got your entrepreneurial spirit, your innovation, your play, your creativity, and all of these kind of things, your communication, your event planning, all of these things, like a teacher's skill, or come to that, anyone in education, those skills are so transferable, but it's not immediately obvious, I think, sometimes. And I think that's why a lot of people find themselves feeling like they can't go anywhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm working with individuals now, and even for me, I've been doing this now for 25 years. I do it with my eyes closed. Put me in front of any audience, anytime, anywhere, any amount. I'm able to go on and on and on. And there is that whole ladder of the learning ladder, which is you start off from unconsciously incompetent. So you don't know that, you don't know. And then you go to consciously competent. And then it's like unconsciously competent. I think that's the next one. Yeah.
Yep.
And because as educators, you are unconsciously competent, like second nature, it's not even new. And so that's why you sometimes feel like, oh, I've got nothing. I am nothing, until we kind of almost turn you inside out to say, have a look at this. And I'm actually working on a system that would help individuals to extract the knowledge they've already mastered over the years.
Yeah.
Because if I start firing 100 questions at you right now, you'd be surprised the answers you'll give me. And so you've built up this whole vault of information, but you've just lost the key to the vaults. And it's about flipping it back. And like there's a book in every education. If you've lived 10 years on planet Earth, there's a book in you. I don't care.
I completely agree. I mean, I wrote my first book, basically sat in a car park waiting for my daughter to pick her up from work because she never used to finish until midnight. So I'd sit in the car park on my phone, just tapping away, just basically offloading stuff from the day, and then gradually did something with it, And it's interesting you mentioned that conscious incompetence and that unconscious competence and everything else. And I think that's another massive issue for educators, is we spend so much of our life in that unconscious competence area that when change comes along and it throws us back into conscious incompetence, that is such a scary feeling that we can easily go into like a flat spin, because we've not been used to being in that zone for so long. And I think that's why we're often quite resistant to change, and that's something that we've really got to coach better, I think, across schools.
If you just imagine that, even for me right now in my journey as a business, I'm actually just really challenging myself to do something different. I want to feel uncomfortable again. I want the fear and the excitement I had on day one of starting my business. Of like, I remember going into the photocopying shop to photocopy stuff and to design my brochure and all of that. I want that buzz again. And you're either forced to do it or you actually do it on yourself. And it is a scary thing. It's a scary thing. That's why coaching is important. And that's why people like you, Darren, can begin to guide people on that path of saying, look, I've done it. I'm like you. Let's go. This is the next step if you're looking to get out or into anything. So it's so important, because even for me right now, I'm going on a pathway of actually mastering stand-up comedy. Because that's one thing I've always wanted to do, but I never gave myself permission to do it. And it's funny. So I started with the whole, Michael McIntyre reading his, just surround yourself with what you want to do and be. And kudos to us doing the things that brings us joy.
Absolutely. Well, it's our why, isn't it?
Yes.
It's what motivates me, actually. Having done 23 years in the classroom, what I now get is a huge sense of fulfillment from helping the people who are continuing to have impact in the classroom. From having the flexibility to be able to do that. Because one of the things that really kind of shackled me, if you like, was that I desperately wanted to go and help other people, but I couldn't because I had my own timetabled lessons and other responsibilities. And that's a real challenge in schools, particularly in a recruitment and retention crisis that we're going through at the moment. And that's where, we talked about those transferable skills. That's where it works both ways as well. And there will be many people out there who have got very transferable skills who might be interested in a career in teaching, that maybe think, well, how do I get into that? They might look at like everything else that's going on at the moment and say, no, thanks, it's not for me. And you couldn't argue with that. But certainly, anybody who's got a passion for, I'm not even going to say teaching, anyone's got a passion for helping other people, I think can make a fantastic teacher. And controversially, maybe, I don't know, I honestly think if you're a good teacher, you can teach anything. Because you don't need a huge amount of content knowledge, and particularly with technology as it is these days, what you need is the skills to be able to teach people to develop their own knowledge.
That's all it is. And I think we mustn't pigeonhole ourselves and restrict ourselves in what we can do. As you were speaking, I just got a picture of some people don't belong in the classroom. They need to get out into the real world. And some people don't belong in the real world. They need to be in a classroom. They will thrive. And it's like you can't judge a fish. You can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
No, but you can try if you're in the government.
You can give it a go and you see what happens. And I think there is something to be said about going out and actively sifting through and say, hey, there shouldn't be a recruitment crisis if we help everybody to, number one, recognize what they have, number two, the transferable skills of it, and number three, some people complain about the shape of education and how crazy it is. Some people thrive in that environment and they live healthy in that. And so as a fish, you better find your ocean, baby. You got to find your ocean.
It's a really interesting point, because I was thinking back to probably around about 15 years ago now, when I was working in the school. We were in special measures, and things were in a pretty dire situation. But actually, as a staff, that was probably our most collegiate and collaborative time.
Wow.
Because we all knew that we were up against it and we were all finding it challenging. I think you automatically have each other's backs and you automatically look out for each other. And I think sometimes when you're at the other end of the spectrum, the expectation is so high that you've got to stay there. And the stakes are so high that we're at the very top. We must stay there, that all of the focus can be on the outcomes and the results, and miss out the personal aspect of it. And that can leave people feeling quite isolated and lonely as well. And then that's where the happiness disappears. And then, where does the enthusiasm come from then for the pupils to feed off of?
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. And I think we underestimate what actually tickles what sort of like turns us on is the challenge, the growth. Happiness equals progress. Progress equals happiness. As you're improving, I always say to people, you have your goals, but do you have your growth? Because to win a World Cup, the amount of growth you have to do to win a World Cup alone, to even qualify, there's growth, but we don't measure enough growth.
No.
And even a child that fails at driving, there's growth in there. And I think the more we measure growth, the happier we will become, because you're not going to achieve all your goals, but you will grow on the way to your goals. And Absolutely. I think that's what's so important.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, actually, with Dylan William and Abdul Chauhan, and they were talking there about, actually, when it comes to student work, even with like assessing students' work, if we get students to do a test and we don't mark it, there's still growth. Whether we mark it or not, they've still learned.
Yeah.
So, there's always growth, but we just don't do a very good job of recognizing it, or we look for what we think is the obvious, and we miss the absolutely bleeding obvious that's just kind of sitting behind it, in terms of personal character growth and everything that goes on with the resilience, endurance, all those kind of skills that we so often say that students lack. And well, is it any wonder? Because we don't put enough emphasis on those.
You see, and the scary thing is now, universities are filled with with young people who are ready with that parachute pack. They're ready to jump. They're ready to get out, but they can't because they're like, where do I go? What do I do? So they're stuck there, know. And so I'm working on a crazy idea now of just starting an academy for young people in universities, teaching them entrepreneurship, personal development, so while you're at uni, you can be doing this as well, because I think we're running a danger of having our young people graduate university, come out, and they're useless because they weren't trained throughout university. And universities are panicking as well. Their numbers are dropping every year. And it's like, whoa, what's happening? And this old institution is slowly crumbling, might I say. So everybody watching, it's crumbling. And so we got to be ahead of the curve and say, what do we do, to aid this journey? It started for a reason in a season in the past. It's run its course now. It's either it innovates or it dies.
Yeah.
If you don't find the why of these young people who are coming through universities, forget it. If Elon Musk started a university tomorrow morning, what do you think would happen, Darren?
Well, who knows? I think he'd get a lot of people applying.
Oh yeah,
but he'd get a huge amount of kickback as well, though, I should imagine, at the moment.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're never going to impress everyone, know. But there is a percentage. Okay, put it this way: Andrew Tate, he's got his own university, and he's got droves of 17, 18-year-olds signing up to his £900 course.
Yeah.
And so you look at it, there is a hunger for knowledge. They real knowledge, real truth. So I won't say it doesn't matter who's doing it. Well, it matters who's doing it. And if we don't do it, other people will do it, but it needs to be done.
Yeah. And that's where actually, as educational institutions and everything else, the ethical side of learning is so important as well.
Yeah.
In terms of, like you say, who's doing that, the messages that are being shared, but equally as well, that'll be Amazon. Dog's getting the door. It's fine.
What have you ordered today?
Oh no, it's probably the dog ordered it. To be fair, I'm just going to shut the door. Bear with me a second.
No problem.
Yeah, it comes back to that kind of that aspect, like I say, the ethical side of it. AI as well. In terms of what are you going to allow? What are you going to accept? What are you not going to accept? How are you going to coach people to live in a world with AI, with misinformation? Like you say, you've avoided like news headlines for, I can't remember how long it was you said now, because I was like staggered.
It's been 5 months now.
But actually, being able to look at a news headline as a young person and feel like you're in a comfortable situation to be able to judge how neutral and how unbiased that reporting is, because that wasn't really something I remember having to deal with when I was at school or when I was at university. It was just the papers are the papers, and you had the Sun and the Mirror, and they were a little bit left and a little bit right, but ultimately they were pretty much kind of reporting the same things. But now with so many sources of information, it is, like you say, potentially exhausting for young people to try and kind of decipher all this information and make sense of it. And when you're tired, you make mistakes.
Yep.
And that can lead you down the wrong sorts of paths. So that ethical side of it, I think, is so important that we nurture and we coach our young people to be able to deal with understanding the world as it is going to be for them in the future and for their children and further on. But also that aspect of, okay, well, how are we going to move with the times, but at the same time keep an element of control over it without locking it down? And some high-profile places have completely locked down things like ChatGPT and said no, nobody's allowed to use it. Others, like the International Baccalaureate, have said, well, absolutely, it's a source of information. As long as they cite it, absolutely fine. And I think, in general, I think we need to come to a consensus about actually what do we want from it, and what do we want our young people to gain from it. And I mean, we used the example of driving earlier on, didn't we? You know, we in a lot of schools we take devices away from people because we say they're a distraction. But what we don't do is we don't say to a 17-year-old, "Here's a car, go and drive it now."
That's it.
You know, we take them through that whole learning process. We teach them to be responsible drivers.
Yeah.
If we don't teach responsible use of the technology, then we're not going to have responsible users.
Yeah. We have work to do.
Yeah, and they're not going to be able to make those ethical decisions for themselves. And kind of where I'm coming from is, if you don't feel empowered to make those kind of decisions, then that is going to lessen your own self-esteem and your own levels of happiness as well.
Yeah.
Because you're going to feel like, oh, I'm too stupid to understand this. And that's when, you know, you become vulnerable and people start to take advantage, isn't it?
That's it. And I think you're right. It's about the education. It's about making sure that we're guiding them along the right path to know how to utilize these things. Because if we don't teach them, somebody else will teach them, you know, because everything is readily available now out there in the real world. So, no, there's a lot to be said about the future of education. I'm excited about the future of education. I mean, I said to my wife, my daughter's not going to any university. She's not. You know, I've seen the energy that she carries. It's like, all right, performing arts school, there you go, boom. You know, something that will bring stuff out of you, not stuff in you. Universities, the structure and the system is great, but it's not for everyone. No. And I think there needs to be some form of educational pathway. The question I'm asking is, what if we took a typical 11-year-old and we took that 11-year-old on an entrepreneurial journey for 5 years? What would they be like when they're 16?
Yeah.
You know, and find fun ways of teaching them life skills through business. And when we say business and entrepreneurship, we don't mean entrepreneurship is life, because you have to deal with people, innovation, care. And so, yeah, it's the future of education is exciting. But I think it's like trying to do a U-turn with an 18-wheeler truck.
Yeah.
You know, you have to negotiate that bend. And I don't think they're looking to do any U-turn anytime soon.
No. I think, they're quite happy with the road they're on, I think. And but I agree with you. I think it's really exciting. I spoke a couple of days ago just about, you know, qualifications in general and how, you know, in my mind, in the future, you know, qualifications and credentials, particularly with things like blockchain, would actually just become just like a mobile phone contract. You know, I've got a Pixel 6 at the minute. Do I upgrade to a Pixel 7 or do I wait for the Pixel 8? Well, I'm going to assess what I know about the Pixel 7. I'm going to assess what information is coming about the Pixel 8. When it's out, I'm going to have a look, and then I'll make a decision about which one I go for, or whether I wait for the next one. And actually, if you could do the same thing with credentials, instead of just going down this linear path of, you know, you're at university for 4 years, you're going to do these topics within these courses, at the end of it, you're going to do a dissertation. Actually, you're going to do this micro credential, but then depending on how that then changes and the world changes around you, you might go off and do this one next, or you might go off and do this one next. You might skip that one because it's not relevant to you at the moment and do that instead. But you might come back in 2 years and say, that is relevant now. I want to do that again. And actually just start to piece together your own kind of like, you know, like Lego structure, if you like, for want of a better word, of what becomes, you know, your credentials, and forget GCSEs and degrees and all that kind of thing, but actually just what are you about as an individual and what are your skills?
That's true. No, definitely discovering. That's one thing I wish that someone was able to help me unpack who I was and what I could become, you know, rather than just say, well, there's a path, to go down that path. And I think there's a lot more young people who aren't aware of who they are, what they like. And it's hard to then find your place in the world when you don't know who you are. I mean, even up until today, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm discovering new things about myself retrospectively. And then they say, you know, there's hindsight, there's foresight. You know, hindsight is a lot more expensive than foresight. You know, you pay for it, but you need both hindsight, foresight, and insight. And I think we have to stand before our young people and to be the insight and the foresight they need so that they don't make those mistakes, you know, in the future.
I like that. Hindsight, foresight, and insight. I like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. If you had a recipe, you know, like you say, very famously said, I don't know who said it, but you know, hindsight's always 20/20 vision, which is brilliant. But actually, you know, it's no good because it's already happened. So you know,
Right.
we've got to move on, haven't we? And actually, the insight, I think, is probably the most important bit there in terms of looking at how you deal with that and how you cope with feedback, how you cope with rejection, how you cope with things not going the way you want them to, and actually understanding how you respond to that as an individual and turning that into then a source of actions that makes you a successful person moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, and hindsight can actually inform foresight because you learn from your mistakes. You know, even for me, I mean, I got this that says, do what you love what you do. That's from hindsight. In hindsight, I was just like, I don't enjoy. Even now in my business, I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like. I don't like. I don't. I just discovered the fact that I don't like running a business.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to find someone who loves running a business, and let's just dovetail our skills. I like being with people and having fun, and so that comes from hindsight. There's no way I would have discovered that 25 years ago. You know, that I don't like elements of it. So, and it's okay.
Yeah. 100%. There's other ladders.
There are, I love that. There are other ladders. I just saw a picture of just like, colorful ladders, you know, and they're not the typical shape ladders. It's like round ladders and odd ladders.
Snakes and ladders, all sorts. Yeah.
Exactly.
Bendy straws, the lot. Who knows?
Yeah. Just get on a ladder, you know.
Jackson, it's been great talking to you. I really enjoyed it, and so glad we got to make it happen. It's been fantastic and so much to take away and think of as well. So I just want to say a huge thank you to yourself for joining us, and thanks to everyone else for listening. Any final words?
Whatever you do, remember that yesterday's history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it. And that's a quote from Kung Fu Panda.
Only the greatest. Yes. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot.